Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Salenka in the 15-minute pool on ICC. I opened with e4 against Salenka, and let's play knight f3 this time around. Played a Smith-Morra gambit the other day, but let's go into an open Sicilian. And we'll play knight c3. So Dragadorf, classical, dragon it is. Okay, let's play the Yugoslav attack. I've actually been thinking about playing a more positional line against the dragon, but I pretty much agree with the current state of theory, which says that the best way to handle the dragon is to go straight for the Yugoslav. You know, just don't back down from a challenge. So if knight c6, I had one game where I castled, but I was actually intending to play bishop c4 this time around if they had played knight c6, but you go knight bd7 instead. That's unusual. I don't think there's any like particular ulterior motive to this move. I think it might just be a case of them being unfamiliar with the line. You know what? Let's castle. I'm not going to bring the bishop out. I'm going to wait to move this light square bishop, if at all. I mean, maybe I won't even have to move it. But I'm thinking just h4, h5, or maybe g4 first. I'm curious what they'll do because they want to get the light square bishop out, so maybe a6 trying to play b5. But if b5 next, I might have knight c6 even. Now let's go h4. Let's see what they got. So if b5, knight c6, queen e8, do I have anything? Maybe not. Maybe just b5, I play h5. And against this, maybe I can go bishop h6. Just play to trade the dark square bishops, because that's the programmed operation in this line. You trade the dark square bishops, and you try to attack their king. Yeah, let's do that. So now that my bishop is on h6, I can entertain ideas such as g4, h takes g4, h5, and then if, like, say, knight takes h5, rook takes h5, g takes h5, queen g5, with a winning pin on the bishop on g7. And I don't think they really want to take on h6, because then I get my queen nestled very nicely into their position. Okay, so they do play b5. Now, knight c6 is possible, but queen to e8, and they guard e7. My knight is undefended on that square. I feel like I should more so just play for g4. Could play knight c6, queen e8, and then g4 as well. Maybe that's a bit better. Reason I say that is if g4 right away, I wonder if knight e5 is a decent follow-up. It might be. g4, knight e5. If I take on h5, they're probably taking with their knight. Bishop takes g7, king takes, maybe f4, knight g4. Hard to say. Knight c6 just feels like the right move. I mean, very rarely does it make sense for their queen to go to e8. In this case, it would have to. All right, let's give it a try. Let's see how it goes. I mean, it can always play also like queen e8. I can go knight d5 and take and try to anchor my knight in on that square. g4, take h5. Okay, let's do it. I'm very curious to see what they have in store. And if bishop b7, I can play knight a5, I was thinking. Attack the bishop, and the knight is on an unusual square over there, but their bishop has nowhere to go practically. Strange stuff already. But I'm optimistic because I feel like my attack is ahead of their attack. and they have to scramble for counterplay. Probably against my knight on c6 or the pawn on g4. That's where they need to be looking. And it is nice to rule out knight e5. I'm glad I don't have to think about that move too hard because I can just swap knights if he plays it. If push comes to shove, let's say knight e5 is played, I probably trade on e5, he takes the d-pawn, I trade on g7, he takes the king, then I could play like, maybe just g5 then. I wouldn't attack him on the king side, but he has double e-pawns and his position is going to be hard to unwind. Let's check Salenka's stats for a moment. So they have a peak rating of 1694, 747 games played. Okay, so they do play knight e5. This compels a trade. Yeah, let's make that trade. Do I take on g7 first? Does it matter? Probably doesn't matter too much. Let's take on e5 first. Might be a little bit more flexible. Okay, so I was thinking just trade and then play g5. I mean, the reason I don't want to trade and then play g takes h5 is that knight takes h5, and I feel like they have a good chance of just getting control over this f4 square. So that's what I don't like about it. I can maybe play knight d5 right now, but I could lose g4. Let's just do this. E5 is also incredibly weak. Like if I play queen g5, what's going on then? Queen g5, if knight d7, I take h5. That's awesome. But queen g5, they can take on g4. I take e5, they take f3. Maybe knight d5 then. Unclear play results from that. g5 is a safe option, but this pawn is tempting me right now. There's also queen g5 take and then just h5. Probably they would have to play rook h8. Ooh, I think this move could be good. Let's do it. What about b4? Queen g5, b4. Because then if knight d5 take, they might be able to play f6 after that. Was all ready to play that, and then I saw b4. I can't go to a4 as queen controls that square. Okay, now I'm back to looking at g5. g5, knight d7. Maybe queen h2 then, or queen d5. Okay, let's do it. So knight d7, queen d5 hits the rook. They can't play bishop b7, so probably like rook b8. But then maybe bishop h3. Bishop h3, they have e6. There's also just knight d7, knight d5. Threatening knight c7. Lots of good options. They might not like the d7 square. Maybe they'll go back to g8 or h7. Nope, they play to d7. So knight d5 or queen d5 or bishop h3. I don't like bishop h3 so much just because of e6, and I feel like my bishop gets shut out. My queen gets into d6, but the bishop gets shut out. So let's say I play queen d5, rook b8. What do I do to get this knight to move so I can play knight takes e5? Might just not be a good follow-up there. Because again, bishop h3, pawn here, queen d6, rook b6, maybe queen c7. Knight d5 feels more coherent. I might want to play that move. Okay, let's do knight d5. If queen d8, queen c3 maybe, threatening knight c7. Also x-rays their king, so maybe f4 is strengthened. Looks like a good solution to me. I could do the same if rook a7, if they play that right now instead of queen d8. Just queen c3, idea f4. Yeah, let's play that. They're still tied down. Maybe they can go bishop b7 now, though. Bishop b7, bishop h3, e6. I would have knight f6, which looks good. So bishop h3, bishop takes d5, rook takes d5. Huh. I might have played this a little inaccurately. Maybe I should have gone queen b4 on the previous move. It's a little late for that now, but yeah, because knight c7 no longer does anything. Just rook c8 is bad for me. Okay, let's try to get this bishop involved. They can play rook c8, but I don't know. They add another piece that's kind of pinned. But again, this e6 move, this is always super annoying. Still think I'll probably be doing pretty well, but I just worry about my bishop being shut out of the game. So rook c8, queen a3, maybe? Just kind of eyeing e7. Bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, e6. Let's say even rook back to d2. Hard to say. Hard to assess that position. I mean, their pawn structure is inferior to ours with the doubled e-pawns. But at the same time, I think the minor piece situation could actually turn out better for black, despite this knight that has been giving them grief over the past couple moves. So rook c8, do I really want to play queen a3? Or am I going to play my queen to a different square? I could play queen b4, but I like a3 because it eyes that a pawn. So let's do that. It doesn't defend c2, but I still feel it's probably okay. So now a probable continuation is bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, e6, and then, or maybe instead of e6, maybe just queen c7 threatening mate. And maybe rook h2 even? Or this rook back to d2? He's taking. I wonder if I should take on d7. Complete in-between move, but it makes sense. Take on d7, they take with their queen, rook takes d5. Queen c6. It's not as fun to play that way, but I just don't want to be in a position in another move or two where I regret doing that. Or not doing that, I should say. No, I'm going to take with this rook. It's natural. Maybe if e6 coming up, there will be some problems with like my queen coming into e7 in conjunction with bishop takes e6. Tactics involving that. So I'm going to bank on the fact that I have enough play with this, and maybe, if necessary, rerouting my bishop to f1, like after I play rook hd1, let's say. If queen c7, I could play queen c3, even. Because if the trade happens, d7 is in trouble. But queen c7, queen c3, queen b8. Yeah, so he's just going to threaten mate. So if rook d2, e6, queen e7, what's going on there? Queen e7. Well, it's not much. I mean, they can even just play knight c5, I think. Might not be anything for them to worry about. Queen c3, queen b8. Don't see much there. Ah, queen c3, queen b8, queen d2. Aha. Light bulb. For that matter, what about just queen d3 to start right now? They can move their knight to b6. Queen d3, knight b6, bishop takes c8, knight takes d5. Not winning anything. Also, if queen c3, queen takes c3, b takes c3, they have knight b6 there too. Yeah, I feel I shouldn't do it. Okay, we'll just play our rook back to d2. We'll be safe. Because now they have to play e6, so at least I'd force that move. e6, is it too bold to take on a6? Be greedy? Kind of looks that way. That's a pretty greedy move. I mean, I'm thinking maybe just queen d6 at this point. Because I would like the queens off the board. e6, queen d6. Kind of have to trade with me. They could play knight c5 first. Trade, trade. Maybe I slowly try to win that position. We're getting low-ish on time. It's just too bad that after e6 I can't play bishop takes. Because then f takes, queen e7, they have rook f7. It's a tactical point that's not working for me. So e6, if I take the pawn on a6, knight c5, maybe just rook a8. Yeah, probably just rook a8, actually. He's doing that. Can't I take on e7 now, though? What's the rub? I don't see it. I think they might have just blundered queen takes e7. I think they did. Unless there's like some weird queen a3 reply. But I would doubt it. No, there's no way. No mate on c2. Queen takes c2. We just take. There's nothing doing there. If queen a5, I can take on d7. I'm threatening queen takes f7. Ah, they can play queen takes a2, though. Huh. Worst case scenario, I just take on d8, probably. Queen a1 check, king up. That's got to be winning. Yeah, that's probably just winning. I would play queen a5 if I were him, because I don't see anything else that's any good. Queen a5, rook takes d7. There's no queen e1 mate. My rook guards that square. So we'll take that guy. Queen takes a2. It's very annoying that he defends that. Maybe I can play bishop e6. Oh no, I can just play queen f6. That's by far the easiest move. Okay. Yeah, that would be by far the easiest. So he takes. Now, do I take with the queen? Or do I do something else? Bishop takes. Or do I give a check first? Probably keep it simple. Take with the queen. Queen takes, rook d8. Queen e7. Ah, he has queen d2 then. Ouch. Ooh, don't blunder into that, John. Yikes. That would be bad. That's very sneaky. Okay, we'll do this instead. That would have been a very easy trap. I'll show that in the analysis. That would have been an easy and funny trap to blunder into. Now I think I'm just winning. Funny stuff. If queen c7 trying to pin my queen, I have queen f6 followed by bishop takes c8. If rook c7, he's actually not even really threatening queen takes a2. Rook c7 I can just take on e5 actually. But there's other moves as well. Okay, let's just grab this pawn.
Check.
And after the king moves, probably just take his rook. I don't think it's worth playing like rook d1 even. Just take the rook, he checks on a1, or king runs. Yeah, there's not going to be enough play for him. King g8 is kind of forced, yeah.
Check.
h4 could be hanging. It will be hanging, but maybe just queen g3 actually. Yeah, queen g3. He doesn't even have any checks with his queen. He can bring his queen all the way back to a1. What's the easiest way to do this? I could just take on a6 too. He takes here. Take b5. He gets a check. Yeah, that h-pawn. I just don't want that h-pawn to become a problem. It shouldn't, though. If queen g3, queen a1, it's totally winning. Okay, we're just going to take here. Oh, no, he can take f3. Okay, I'm going to do this move. Just try to guard everything for now. My bishop is somehow, like, not very good right now. As weird as that seems. Maybe I should have thrown in a check on b8 or something. I think what I'll do is, like, okay, he didn't... Let's play bishop d7. Just attack that loose pawn. I'm just going to try to transfer my bishop back. Like b4, bishop b5. If I put the bishop on c4, I'm going to be aiming right at that f7 pawn. He's not going to have much he can do against that. He's probably got to try queen a1. I could even check on b8 next move if I want to try to get my queen to e5. If he goes queen a1, assuming. My bishop wasn't well placed on c8. It was only good if I could take the pawn on a6. Okay, let's just bring the bishop to an attacking post. So, want to zero in on this pawn. Kind of threatening queen e5 too. Yeah, queen e5, and he'd have to go to h7 because going to g8. Well, I guess maybe he could go to f8, but now that's also bad. Queen e5, he'd probably have to go to h7. I think it should be game over soon.
Check.
He does have this annoying check on g2. Okay, doing it this way, he's going to lose some stuff. So now I check here.
Check.
Let's pre-move this.
Check.
Then f7 is falling. He'll play king d7, I bet. But all his pawns are falling now.
Check.
If I take here, he goes king c5. So winning in many ways. Let's just check here instead, though. We won't give him the satisfaction of going to c5.
Check.
Check here instead. I should have a mating net with the queen and the bishop, I would think.
Check.
Be kind of weird if I didn't. Well, maybe not so weird, I don't know. Let's keep checking a little bit.
Check.
So king e7, queen e8. It's getting close to a mating net.
Check. Check.
Getting very close. Oh yeah, king c8, bishop a6.
Checkmate.
Okay. All right. Well, he definitely erred with rook fd8. No doubt about it. Like right here. For some reason, he didn't want to play e6. E6 is probably almost the only move there. So let's have a look at it. So Sicilian Dragon. Yugoslav attack, where white plays f3, bishop e3, queen d2. And the normal move is knight c6, after which there's two versions of this line. There's castle queenside right away, which there is a game in that variation you can find in my 15 in my category on the 15 in my category on my channel in the 15-minute category. And there's also bishop c4. That's the other way to play it. I don't think knight bd7 is a good idea. I mean, he's sort of playing it like a Dragadorf, a Najdorf Dragon hybrid, but it's not promising. I don't think weakening c6 is worth it, and moreover, he never has options of taking my knight on d4. I also kind of get a free hand on the king side. Let's start up the engine right about here. So I castled. He played a6. I just went for it on the king side. He did play h5, and it's useful to swap those dark square bishops because this is the prime defender of his king. We want to trade that and weaken their defenses. So here, I jump the knight in. The engine says that g4 is better. Yeah, I'm actually kind of inclined to agree tentatively because I don't think I'd gain much by playing knight c6. It's a tempting move to make, but after queen e8, he's solid enough, and that knight is going to lose time. So if take, I'm just going to play h5. And this is the idea I was mentioning, that if knight takes, we have rook takes. This is a very common pattern that you want to know. And then queen takes g7 mate is unstoppable. So why didn't I go for g4? I think I didn't like knight e5 was the move I disliked. But the engine says I can take on g7 and then play g5, attacking their knight. Knight e8, play f4. I guess just start forcing them back and I have some advantage. Okay, yeah, I'll buy that. I played knight c6, and then queen e8, and now g4. Same idea. If they took, I was going to play h5, operating on the principle that they can't really capture on h5 because of that heat coming down on g7. So instead, after that, they played knight e5. They took here. And now I was hesitant to take on h5 because of knight takes, and then the knight can come into f4. I didn't like that blockading square that they have available. That said, I didn't see queen d5 hitting the loose rook and the loose pawn. Okay, that changes things. Yeah, that looks to be just a win of a pawn. Bishop e6, take
Check.
on e5, king moves. Yeah, and it's just a position where white's up a pawn, basically. Okay, yeah. If I had seen that, I probably would have gone for it. I played g5, knight d7. Now my main candidates were knight d5, queen d5, and also bishop h3. It's interesting the computer likes bishop g2. That move just looks kind of like a dumb move. Put the bishop behind two pawns. The only way that can be good is if I'm playing f4 quickly. If a human plays bishop g2 in this position, be suspicious that they're using an engine. That's all I have to say about that move. I played knight d5. Okay, the computer now likes that knight d5 move. I thought this would turn out okay, but after queen here, probably queen c3 wasn't the best follow-up. Yeah, queen b4 attacking e7. That looks like a better idea, because now if e6, I can sink the knight into this beautiful f6 square, and he's pinned. And if rook e8, I have kind of a free hand to do what I want. Okay, now queen here is good. That's an interesting nuance. So play queen b4 first, lure the rook to e8, and now back to c3, whereupon we're threatening this. And this doesn't work anymore because we take on e8 with check. Crucial detail. So he doesn't have time to win my queen. That's a nice line. Queen b4. He probably would play rook e8. I don't think he would allow this, although the computer says that is the better way of playing. So lure the rook to e8 and drop this queen back. Big advantage to white. So I did this, inaccurate. Bishop b7, bishop h3, rook c8, queen a3. Yeah, and they're almost out of the woods. They played take on d5. e6 is playable, huh? Because of this, and then again this queen c7 move. Yeah, that makes sense. I have to lose time defending c2. So let's say rook d2, and then they can even be so bold as to take with the king here, because they can just go back. Yeah, I'm not surprised that the engine thinks black is better now. Their position looks better put together than ours, I think. My pieces are kind of scattered, and I also have some weak pawns on the king side. So if they would have played e6, I might have had to do something creative, like move my knight back, knight e3, defending c2. White has a moderate advantage. The computer wants to put the queen into d6 and look for a trade next. I was hoping that my pawn structure edge would be something that I could hang my hat on in the coming play, but it might not be that big of an advantage. I mean, his pawns actually control a lot of territory. They cover all these squares, especially in the center. Okay, so e6 was good for them there. Instead, they took and then played queen c7. I wonder what the computer thinks is better. It actually likes pawn takes. Yeah, another move I wouldn't really consider, at least off the top of my head, because it looks wrong to close the d file. That's for sure. I think rook takes is better. It seems that way to me. Now here, rook back to d2, and here they just blundered rook d8. Yeah, if they had played e6, there's everything to fight for. The engine gives white a moderate advantage, plus 0.2, but that's not much. I was thinking about playing queen d6 and playing for the endgame. They have to trade queens now because if they don't, I can take on d7. Just follow the engine line. Knight b8. Let's say I play, well, let's say I swap just directly. Maybe rook over. e4. So this is interesting because you might look at this position and say, like, how can black possibly be better when there's pawns on the both sides of the board, and we have a knight versus a bishop, which we know typically favors the bishop, pawns on both sides of the board, and black has worse pawns. Well, I think it's a big part due to the fact that their knight has more potential than our bishop. Like, black's already done a pretty good job of setting up pawns on light squares. My bishop doesn't have a lot of targets. Certainly on this diagonal, it's not doing anything. Also, this knight can get into d4, so knight c6, d4 might be a possibility. And I'm going to have a hard time activating my majority because he has all these pieces on the board to work with, and yeah, it's just hard to create a pass pawn. Also, this pawn I could see in some sort of rook endgame or something could be hard to defend. So, kind of shows you how you can't just rely on general rules like that. You have to first independently assess the position and decide whether a rule applies, not the other way around. Like, you shouldn't let the rule like automatically guide how you think about the position. So here the knight is probably just superior to the bishop, and black is for choice with an inferior cosmetically looking pawn structure. Okay, so they definitely should have played e6 right there. I think they just blundered e7. I think they just didn't see that I could take this pawn. Now they're caught in this pin. Played queen a5, queen c4 is a slightly, queen c4 is a slightly better chance. Seems kind of similar though. This way I can't take on d7 because I get mated.
Checkmate.
But I can take on d7 with the bishop. Queen takes. Queen a3. Probably crucial that I have that move. Yeah, no queen a1. Okay, yeah, and white's up a piece, and I'm going to win. Yeah, not much they can do to trick me after queen a5. Take. Bishop e6 is even better. It's kind of funny. Controls a2. I think I thought about that move briefly. I don't know in this position or not, but take d7. He takes. Okay, so the trap that I had mentioned, if I like take with the queen, suddenly after rook d8, I think I'm losing because if I move this queen here, then they have queen b2. King b1.
Check.
Back rank checkmate.
Checkmate.
That would be absolutely tragic if that happened. Because it'd be such an easy mistake to make, right? Like, you're like, oh, autopilot. I just want a piece. Let's take with the queen, attack their rook. What are they going to do about it? And then boom, rook d8, and suddenly wherever your queen retreats, queen d2's coming. And I can't even play a deflection move like b4 because they have queen a3 check. And then after the king moves, just collect the queen. Winning. So, always have to be vigilant. Any position in chess, if the clock is still going, you got to be vigilant. Don't stop looking for threats until the clocks are stopped. So, queen takes a2.
Check.
I take on e5. Yeah, and I just picked up the rook.
Check.
For some reason, this position was slightly annoying to me, but I probably used a little bit too much time trying to figure out what to do, but I don't think it was too big of a deal. So queen a1, I kept thinking they should try queen a1. That would be a better practical chance. Would at least force me to do something with the b pawn. And the b3, maybe they get to check. Even this, I probably escaped the checks, but this bishop was giving me problems because I wanted to take on a6, right? Like in this position, take on a6. But these pawns are loose. I didn't really want to, as I've said repeatedly, like when you're winning a position, you want to minimize the amount of imbalances. But maybe here I should just take because probably, I don't know, something like this.
Check.
Here I can always bring the bishop back. I mean, maybe h4 is like a temporary problem, but I should be able to get out of this. I think one line I was looking at, that wouldn't work. b4, h3 here. I'm too slow. I can trade and then push. That's the type of thing I was mentioning, but maybe I should just do this.
Check.
Bishop e2, h4. There's got to be a good way to stop that pawn. I don't know. I mean, this is an imbalance too, so perhaps it was better what I did. Queen G3. Kind of torn. Really not sure, like, what's the cleanest way to win this position. Queen G3. And he didn't notice Queen A1, but the computer wants to go Queen A1, Queen B8. So that if takes, then we play this.
Check.
And then king here, and then this nice move, Queen A7. Holding D4, so no Queen D4. And then attacking F7. And I guess, like,
check.
They have one check maybe, and they run out of checks very quickly. They have to go all the way back, do something passive, and then white should win. But at least Queen A1 would force me to find something active like that. I think he was just pushing his pawns, and that's not enough to create problems. I get to reroute my bishop. Now I've got my bishop pointed at the pawn that I want it pointed at.
Check.
Check. He's got to play King H7 now. No doubt about it. Yeah, and I was thinking about stuff like Queen F6, Queen F4, Queen E8 looks good.
Check.
I might have to, like, just try to escape some checks or something. I wonder if I can run my king out.
Check.
King F4.
Check.
Maybe not.
Check.
So instead I should block with my bishop. Okay. Yeah, and that's probably winning. Okay. But yeah, he's got to try King H7. Oh, I missed a faster
check.
mate here. Check. It's mate in 8, but I didn't, or mate in 5, I didn't see it. Queen
check.
D6. So if King E8, Bishop B5. If King G8, Queen takes G6, it's got to be mate soon. So King G7, and then check. Okay, and I win this pawn. Aha. So this is technically the
check.
best move. But he's going to get
check.
mated. Okay. Yeah.
Check. Checkmate.
Not surprising.
Check.
I was just looking for
check.
a way to win that F7 pawn, and I saw Queen H8, Queen F6 is the
check.
speediest way to do that.
Check. Check. Check.
It felt like there
check.
must be a mating net, so it's good to see that
check.
validation. And he
check.
went King D8, and it's mate next
checkmate.
Move. Same thing if King F8, though. King F8, I check,
check.
here, check again on
check.
C4.
Check. Checkmate.
Okay, so what can we learn from this game? Well, in the Dragon Sicilian, I don't think this plan with knight bd7 is to be trusted. If black's going to do that, they usually do it before castling. Like, there is a line called the Dragadorf where, like, I can't remember if it's knight bd7 here or a6 first. I think I want to say it's a6 first. But black does this, then goes here, and then tries to play a quick b5, bishop b7. But that's usually postponing or cutting out castling altogether. So I think, like, once they get to the standard position with him already castle on opposite sides, like, this isn't so promising. If you're white in this opening, remember that idea I mentioned with, like, g4, take, h5, take, and queen coming to g5? Or sacrificing the exchange on h5 and then the queen coming to g5? That's a useful attacking motif to know. Yeah, I mean, this is not typical of a dragon. This nuance with queen b4 followed by queen c3 was kind of nice. And he just dropped his e7 pawn. Otherwise, it was going to be a fight for sure. Probably a pretty equalish position if he had played e6. I think it's balanced. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this game. And I'll be back tomorrow with another standard game. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.